Have you ever felt like you're always one step behind? That no matter how hard you try to stand out, someone always seems to know more, decide better, speak with more clarity? Maybe the problem isn't your ability, but the mental filters you haven't broken yet. The world doesn't just value technical knowledge, it values those who think clearly, act strategically, and master themselves. And Stoic philosophy can teach you exactly that, how to become intelligent from the inside out. Most people believe that being smart means knowing more than others. But real intelligence isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you can apply at the right moment, with calm, presence, and discernment. Being smarter than anyone doesn't require you to be better than them. It requires you to know yourself better than most people ever will. The intelligence that changes your life isn't loud. It's silent, strategic, patient, and powerful. If you've made it this far, it's because this theme speaks to you. And in this video, we'll dive into 8 Stoic principles that will show you how to develop the most powerful mind of your life. If that makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel now. Here you'll find more than just content. You'll find tools for transformation, emotional mastery, and clarity to live with wisdom. Now take a deep breath, because what comes next might change your way of thinking forever. Have you noticed that the wisest people aren't the ones who talk the most, but the ones who listen the best? In a world where everyone shouts to be heard, those who stay quiet become rare and powerful. Silence, when used wisely, is not a lack of response, it's a strategy. Marcus Aurelius said the best argument is calm, and those who master their own tongue master conflict, decisions, and even the course of their life. Speaking without thinking is like handing your mind over on a silver platter. Those who react impulsively reveal more about their weaknesses than about the truth. But those who choose silence observe better, understand more, and act with clarity. Stoicism teaches that between stimulus and response there is space, and in that space lives your freedom. Silence expands that space, where intelligence can breathe. Have you ever been underestimated for staying silent? That's not weakness, and that's awareness. It means you're listening carefully, analyzing precisely, choosing consciously. Intelligence isn't just knowing what to say. It's knowing when, how, and whether it's even worth saying. Often staying quiet is winning without fighting, letting others reveal themselves while you preserve your inner strength. Seneca said those who speak hastily regret it twice, for what they said and for what never needed to be said. It's easy to fall into the trap of needing the last word, trying to look smart, defending your point. But every time you enter that game, you lose control over yourself. True superiority doesn't scream, doesn't explain, doesn't need to prove anything. It simply observes and acts at the right time. Start practicing this power. Instead of responding impulsively, breathe. Instead of snapping back, listen. Instead of trying to convince, lead by conduct. That doesn't make you passive, and it makes you strategic. In Stoicism, silence is a sheathed sword, ready to strike but powerful even when at rest. Being smart is realizing that sometimes what you don't say is worth more than 1,000 words. Comment below. I choose the silence that strengthens, just so I know you're grasping the power of waiting, watching, and acting with wisdom. Now that you understand the weapon of silence, let's talk about another skill that changes how people see you: emotional control. Have you ever noticed how one small irritation can ruin your entire day? A sideways glance, an ignored message, a careless criticism, and suddenly your mind becomes a battlefield. Intelligence isn't measured by the speed of your reasoning, but by your emotional stability in chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about those things." That quote holds the key to true superiority. Emotionally intelligent people aren't cold, they're firm. They feel everything, but they choose what to do with what they feel. Instead of giving in to anger, they examine its source. Instead of exploding, they channel it. Instead of justifying, they evaluate the impact before acting. Intelligence is having that internal pause that turns impulse into decision. How many times have you regretted reacting in the heat of the moment? Anger cost you opportunities, anxiety ruined conversations, fear silenced you when you needed to speak. Stoicism shows you that emotion isn't weakness, it's energy. And that energy can either be destructive or constructive. The one who masters their emotions doesn't need to control others, because they've already conquered themselves. Epictetus said, "No one is free who is not master of themselves." The freedom you seek externally begins with the control you develop within. When your peace doesn't depend on others' moods, you become unshakable. When you stop reacting to everything, you begin to see what truly matters. That is the essence of higher intelligence. Train emotional control daily. Feel, but don't drown. Breathe, but don't run. Reflect, but don't freeze. Understanding your emotions is like sharpening a blade. You may not need it often, but when you do, it's ready. The wise mind doesn't get lost in conflict. It transforms tension into clarity. That is one of the clearest signs of inner strength you can develop. Comment below. I am greater than my reactions, just so I know you're taking command of your mind. Now that you understand the value of self-control, let's move to the next point. A skill that gives you an edge anywhere, without anyone realizing the source of your power. Have you noticed how the wisest people speak little but perceive everything? They walk into a room and within minutes they know who's trying to show off, who's insecure, who's hiding something. While most waste energy trying to be noticed, the truly intelligent observe in silence, and that's one of the most effective weapons for growing and winning quietly. Stoicism teaches that you don't have to speak all the time. Sometimes you just need to perceive. Observe without judging. Analyze without rushing, understand without reacting. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself to train his self-awareness. He knew that a mind that observes itself is the only one that can be transformed. And that applies to looking both inward and outward. Silent observation gives you the upper hand in all areas of life. In conflict, it prevents you from being manipulated. At work, it helps you understand the dynamics before taking action. In relationships, it reveals what words try to hide. Those who observe well don't need to ask many questions. They've learned to listen with their eyes. Constant reaction makes you predictable. Observation makes you unpredictable. You see without being seen, you think without rushing, you understand before acting. And when you do act, it seems perfect. But it was your silence that built that response. Intelligence isn't in the noise. It's in the precision of showing up at the exact right time. Seneca said, "He who lives in awareness lives twice." Because the awakened mind sees beyond the obvious. It catches patterns, gestures, inconsistencies. And the more you observe, the less you judge. Because you begin to see that most behaviors come from wounds, fears, and insecurities. People don't even understand themselves. Comment below. I choose to see before I act, just so I know you're activating that sharper awareness. And now that you've felt the power of calm observation, let's talk about another form of intelligence, strategic thinking. How many times have you made decisions on impulse and regretted them later? That quick reply that ruined a bond. That rushed choice that made you miss a good opportunity. Most people act to relieve current anxiety, not to build long-term results. Being smarter than anyone demands a rare skill, thinking strategically, even when emotions are loud. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire facing wars inside and out. But what set him apart from other leaders was his clarity of thought in chaos. He would write to himself, "Do not rush. What is true stands the test of time." That Stoic mindset shows us that wise decisions aren't born from urgency, but from patience to analyze, reflect, and only then act. Strategic thinking is training your mind to go beyond immediate reaction. It's observing patterns, foreseeing consequences, and making choices that will benefit your future, even if they cost you something today. This applies to everything: hard conversations, emotional investments, career moves. The strategist understands that every move is a chess piece, not a blind shot. Strategic intelligence doesn't need to be loud, it reveals itself over time. While others try to sound smart with complex words, you prove your intelligence through silent results. Stoicism invites you to trade the thrill of instant wins for the glory of long-term growth, and that requires vision, patience, and inner command. Epictetus taught, "Nothing external can harm you unless you allow it." And thinking strategically is exactly that, not being dragged by emotional tides, but steering your ship with focus, even through stormy seas. When you develop that cool, lucid gaze, you start seeing the hidden game behind every situation. Comment below, I act with vision, not with haste. Just so I know you're stepping into that strategic state of mind. Now that your thoughts are clearer and sharper, let's talk about another kind of intelligence. The kind that turns obstacles into silent allies. Have you ever gone through something that felt like the end, but later you realized it was the beginning of a stronger version of you? A breakup, a layoff, a failure. Sometimes it's only after the fall that we see what we were blind to when everything was still standing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of Stoicism's greatest lessons. Every obstacle hides an instruction. Most people waste energy resisting what happened. They complain, deny, ask, "Why me?" But a Stoic doesn't waste time lamenting. They breathe and ask, "What is this here to teach me?" That simple shift in question separates the intelligent from the reactive, the resilient from the bitter, the wise from the proud. Because those who learn from pain move forward while others get stuck. The obstacle, when looked at clearly, reveals your weaknesses. It shows where your mind needs to grow, where your patterns are still fragile, where your intelligence must evolve. This applies to everything: financial setbacks, emotional crises, inner battles. Pain is a silent teacher that doesn't yell but transforms those who learn to hear with humility. Seneca said, "Difficulty reveals the man." And the truly intelligent are those who don't lose their heads in difficulty. They find new paths. They don't see the problem as punishment, but as part of their inner refinement. Because if you want to be smarter than most, you'll have to go through trials that most would never face with courage. You don't have to love the obstacle, but you must understand it has a purpose. Stoic intelligence acknowledges pain, but doesn't identify with it. It uses it, transforms it, grows from it. And when you do that, nothing completely paralyzes you, because there's always something you can control: your attitude. Comment below, I turn obstacles into strength, just so I know you're ready to look at your challenges with new eyes. Now that you see how even pain can serve your evolution, let's move to another pillar of intelligence that separates the wise from the reactive: total presence. How many times have you been physically somewhere, but your mind was elsewhere? Talking to someone, but already thinking about what to say next. Working, but stuck on something that happened yesterday. That silent disconnection weakens you, because real mental power lives in one place only: the present. Marcus Aurelius said, "Concentrate on what you're doing as if it were the last thing you'd ever do." That's not exaggeration. That's presence. Being smarter than anyone begins with training your attention. A focused mind perceives more. It reads between the lines, senses intentions, detects what's beneath the words. Full presence reveals subtleties that a distracted mind misses. And this refined perception is a higher form of intelligence because it connects, prevents, anticipates, and understands. How many bad decisions have you made because you weren't fully present? How many words did you say without truly listening? How many opportunities did you miss because your mind was stuck in the past, or panicking about a future that hasn't even arrived? Stoicism invites you to anchor your mind in the now, not as theory, but as a liberating practice. Seneca reminds us, the shortest time is now, and it's the only one that belongs to us. The past can't be touched, the future can't be controlled, yet most minds live there. A truly intelligent mind doesn't just understand the present, it inhabits it with intensity, attention, and reverence. Because the only time you can change anything is now. Practicing presence is simple, but it takes effort. Slow down, breathe, observe, feel. Don't operate on autopilot. Bring your mind back every time it drifts. That's not wasting time. That's recovering your clarity. And when nurtured, that clarity becomes an internal compass that guides you with precision, even in chaos. Comment below, I choose to live in the now, just so I know you're unlocking this mental superpower. And now that your attention is more centered, it's time to explore another rare ability: saying less to make a bigger impact. Have you noticed how some people talk endlessly and say almost nothing? and others, with just a few words, can silence an entire room. The difference isn't vocabulary, it's awareness. Stoicism teaches that real wisdom doesn't need applause or lengthy speeches. Epictetus said, "Silence is more powerful than 1,000 words." Speaking less is a choice and a sign of emotional intelligence. Ordinary people talk to relieve anxiety. Wise people speak to bring clarity. They don't waste energy trying to impress. They focus on communicating with precision. Every word has intent. Every phrase has purpose. Every silence has meaning. Speaking less is not weakness, it's strategy. And those who master their words master their image, their relationships, and their outcomes. When you learn to choose your words, you position yourself with strength, without shouting. You inspire respect, without demanding it. And this way of expressing yourself, when refined, becomes a signature of wisdom. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress, he wrote to refine. That's the Stoic foundation of communication. Less ego, more essence. How many times have you regretted saying too much? Revealing what you shouldn't, trying to explain what others didn't want to hear. Being smarter than others means also knowing when to stay quiet and speaking with precision only when necessary. Because what's said with clarity doesn't need repetition, and what's said with purpose doesn't need applause. Seneca taught, "Brevity is the soul of wisdom." When you start speaking with presence, intention, and calm, you eliminate excess, and what's left is impact. Whether at work, at home, or during conflict, the right words, in the right tone, change everything. Words are like blades. They can heal or harm. Comment below, "I speak with clarity, not with haste," just so I know you're training that verbal and emotional intelligence. Now that you've learned how to use your voice wisely, it's time to end with the final step, the one that completes the cycle of true intelligence, overcoming the ego. Have you ever felt the need to prove something to someone? Show that you're capable, smart, strong. That's the ego at work. Subtle but ruthless. It hides behind ambition, but it's really insecurity. It looks like confidence, but it's fear of not being seen. And when you live trying to prove your worth, you become a prisoner of other people's approval. Stoicism offers the opposite path. Don't try to seem, try to be. And that starts when you let go of the need for recognition. The ego wants applause, wisdom wants peace. And true intelligence lives in those who don't break under praise or criticism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Fame and praise are just wind, don't build on them. Because those who live to be admired are dependent. But those who live by their values are free." Real superiority doesn't need to prove superiority. Defeating the ego means accepting that you don't need to always be right. That losing an argument might be a silent win. That staying quiet can be more powerful than convincing. That listening to criticism, when filtered wisely, is a form of growth. The ego reacts. The wise mind listens, absorbs, and moves on. Because the goal is not to be right, it's to become better. How many times have you delayed your growth just to hold on to pride? You didn't ask for help. You didn't admit a mistake. You didn't go back when you should have. The ego sabotages relationships, blocks opportunities, and robs your peace. Being smarter than anyone means having the courage to let the ego sit down and let your awareness take the wheel. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Seneca said, "It's nobler to admit a mistake than to persist in it, and the mind that admits grows. The one that resists stays stuck." That's why the final step of Stoic intelligence is the hardest, letting go of the mask and standing in your essence. When you no longer need applause, you're free to grow. When you don't need to win over others, you're ready to win over yourself. Comment below, "I am more than my ego," just so I know you're ready to live lighter, without needing to prove anything to anyone. Now that you've mastered these 8 Stoic virtues of silent intelligence, it's time to wrap this journey with reflection, clarity, and a bold next step. Now that you've made it this far, pause and observe who you're becoming. Each topic we explored wasn't just a philosophical concept, it was a spark to awaken your silent intelligence. Silence, self-control, presence, ego detachment, all of it shapes a mind that no longer needs validation because it knows its own worth. Stoicism isn't about looking strong. It's about being firm on the inside, even when the outside collapses. So tell me, which of these 8 virtues will you start applying today? Because knowledge that isn't applied becomes a burden. But when you put it into practice, it becomes freedom. Maybe you can't change everything at once, but you can start with one habit, one choice, one new way of responding to what used to throw you off. And that alone is a sign of someone intelligent. If this content empowered you, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you won't find empty phrases. You'll find structure, clarity, a real path to becoming emotionally stronger, mentally wiser, and spiritually lighter. And if something here touched your soul, leave a comment. I want to know what hit you hardest, because your transformation begins when you decide it's time to think differently.